This is why dire wolves are considered the strongest wolves. In case you didn't already know, wolves have long been a subject of fascination for humans. From our ancient conflicts with prehistoric wolves to thousands of years of companionship with their domesticated descendants, the history runs deep. Native Americans named heroes after them. Modern bros get them tattooed during spring break. In film and TV, moody teenage girls find themselves entangled in romances with equally moody teenage wolf boys. However, in recent pop culture, dire wolves have overtaken werewolves in fan appeal, largely thanks to Game of Thrones. Meanwhile, in the world of science, gene editing technology has made surprising progress toward bringing this beast back from extinction. Ironically, we might get dire wolves back before we get the winds of winter. Today, we're diving deeper into why the dire wolf was such a phenomenal animal and how its strength and abilities compared to other wolves. Big Bad Wolf. Despite the valuable insights gained from fossils and geological records, much about the dire wolf remains a mystery, including its classification. The dire wolf is currently known as Enochian dirus, though it was originally classified as Canis dirus. Like the modern gray wolf, Canis lupus, the dire wolf belongs to the dog family, Canidae. However, recent fossil studies have led most experts to conclude that dire wolves don't belong in the Canis genus and should be placed in a different one. Interestingly, there were two subspecies of dire wolves, Dirus dirus and Dirus gildii. Dirus dirus was the larger of the two, averaging around 150 pounds in body weight, while Dirus gildii averaged about 132 pounds. These figures put both dire wolf subspecies close in size to the largest gray wolves, some even larger. Gray wolves typically weigh around 88 pounds, with the biggest individuals reaching up to 175 pounds. Like modern wolves, a dire wolf's size would vary based on sex, age, region, season, and food availability. Males were generally larger than females of the same age, just as we see with other canids. As you probably know, in the animal kingdom, size is often closely tied to strength and formidability. So it's reasonable to assume that dire wolves, being larger, were also stronger than gray wolves. One common measure of strength in animals is bite force, or the pressure exerted by their jaws per square inch. Gray wolves have a bite force of at least 800 psi, with some larger individuals exceeding 1,000 psi. By estimating from gray wolf data and considering the dire wolf's more robust skull and jaw structure, it's safe to assume that dire wolves could exert a bite force of around 1,200 psi or more. Skeletal evidence also shows that dire wolves had thicker bones, suggesting greater muscle mass, and more muscle equals more power. Another sign of the dire wolf's strength lies in its prey. During the Pleistocene, they hunted giant bison, camel-like herbivores, horses, and large deer species, many of which are found at dire wolf fossil sites like the La Brea tar pits. These so-called mega-herbivores required immense strength to bring down. Fierce competition dire wolves weren't the only predators around. While they shared their environment with lynxes, cougars, gray wolves, and coyotes, they also competed with true mega-predators. The Pleistocene wilds were patrolled by the likes of giant short-faced bears, American lions, and saber-toothed Smilodon cats. These predators were both powerful and ruthless, so dire wolves had to be strong just to survive. Today we have a fascinating new window into dire wolf biology, thanks to Colossal Sciences. This American biotech company has made headlines by using gene editing to bring back the dire wolf, sort of. What they've actually done is splice certain genetic codes related to skeletal structure, fur, and behavior found in fossils into gray wolf embryos. Despite being from different genera, dire wolves and gray wolves were closely related enough to allow for hybridization. The modified embryos are implanted in domestic dogs. So far, 3 dire wolf pups have been born: Romulus, Remus, and Casey. Romulus and Remus are male and just over 6 months old, while Casey is a 1-month-old female. At just 6 months, the male pups already weigh 80 pounds, about the same as an adult gray wolf. They also show incredibly thick limbs, strong wild behavior, and thick pale fur. They have prominent manes, and whether Casey will develop one remains to be seen. Their pale fur has already challenged the previous belief that dire wolves were rusty red or brown. A whitish coat would make sense for Ice Age camouflage, and the long fur seems adapted for harsh winters. For now, the pups are still being fed by humans. Eventually, researchers hope to test their hunting skills. But first, Colossal Sciences plans to produce more lab-bred dire wolves to form a pack and study their social behavior in depth. Of course, the elephant in the room is this. While these pups have certain dire wolf genes and traits, they are still more than 90% gray wolf. Many in the scientific community argue that they aren't truly Enochian deerish reborn. Still, gene editing holds promise as the most viable way to bring extinct and endangered animals back. Time will tell, and the ethics of such lab creations are bound to remain controversial. Diet and behavior. So what else do we know about dire wolves? While they preferred large prey, dire wolves were also adaptable and opportunistic. Their diet likely included sloths, rodents, and birds. Adult mammoths may have been too large to tackle, but calves and juveniles were vulnerable to large packs. Scavenging was also common. Ice Age winters were brutal, and competition over kills and carcasses was intense. Dire wolves clashed with bears, big cats, and other canids for food. They probably had better luck driving off coyotes and gray wolves than intimidating saber-toothed cats or short-faced bears. However, a large pack of dire wolves might have even given those apex predators something to worry about. Dire wolves were widespread across North and South America, thriving in a variety of habitats including grasslands, forests, mountains, coastlines, and semi-deserts. They likely had region-specific adaptations to suit their environments. Evolution and extinction. As for their origins, there's no unanimous answer. The dominant theory is that dire wolves descended from Enochion divisi, a coyote-like animal that lived in the Americas about 9 million years ago. Another theory suggests a common ancestor with gray wolves that migrated from Eurasia via the Bering Land Bridge. Dire wolves are believed to have lived during the late Pleistocene and early Holocene, roughly from 125,000 to 10,000 years ago. This was a period of intense climate change and geological upheaval, during which humans were rapidly emerging as the dominant species. Despite their strength, intelligence, and adaptability, dire wolves couldn't make it to the modern era. Some reasons remain unclear, but many factors likely contributed to their extinction. Why did they go extinct? One major factor was climate change. Around 13,000 years ago, over 90 species of large animals were dwindling and disappearing. Among them were mammoths, camels, and certain bison, all staple prey for dire wolves. Their loss meant fiercer competition for smaller prey. And when it came to smaller prey, dire wolves were at a disadvantage. Their stocky bills and relatively short legs made them slower than gray wolves. Stocky builds also reduce endurance, another area where gray wolves had an edge. Bigger bodies need more food, and large dire wolf packs required massive caloric intake. In contrast, smaller gray wolves could survive on less and were better suited to catch quick, small prey. Dire wolves likely spent huge amounts of energy on hunts that didn't yield enough food, only accelerating starvation. On top of that, humans were rapidly expanding into the Americas. Armed with increasingly sophisticated tools and weapons, they competed with predators for game and even hunted predators directly. Dire wolves posed either direct threats or competition to humans, so they were regularly targeted. Between climate change, food scarcity, and increased pressure from humans, the dire wolf couldn't withstand the challenges and went extinct between 13,000 and 10,000 years ago.